Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast. You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today, we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
Welcome back to the program, Mom. Zev Brenner. It's been a while since we last had David Rubin, originally from Brooklyn, New York, Crown Heights, Flatbush, Mill Basin, other areas. He's now the mayor of Shiloh. He's the author of Confronting Radicals. He's founder of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, which is an amazing story how that got funded. He's also written other books, including Trump and the Jews, God, Israel, and Shiloh. And he appears on Fox News and Newsmax, and he speaks throughout the world. He's a trusted voice of Israel. Originally, as I said, from Brooklyn, New York, now on the ancient city of Shiloh. And he's dedicated his life also to helping children with the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Zeb. Good to be back with you.
Thank you for being back with us. I know that you're dedicated to children, and it goes back about 20 years where there was a terrorist incident regarding your son. So tell us about that.
Well, it was about 1 year after my term as mayor, and I was driving back from Jerusalem. I had my 3-year-old son with me, and halfway home, suddenly there was a massive hail of bullets on the car. Car went completely dead when the bullets hit. We later found out that there were 3 terrorists who were perched on the side of the road. Terrorists from the Palestinian Authority shooting at the car, and the car went completely dead when the bullets hit. I was shot. I got shot in my leg. Blood started flying out of my leg all over the place. And I quickly tried to start the car to get away from the terrorists, and the car wasn't starting. Then I remembered I had my 3-year-old son sitting behind me in the baby seat. I quickly turned around to him. I asked him if he was okay. He was staring straight ahead. His eyes were wide open. His mouth was wide open. He looked like he was trying to scream or cry, but no sounds were coming out. Well, I quickly tried to start the car again, figuring my son is just in shock. I didn't see any blood on him, and I saw that he was breathing. So I hit the gas. The car's not starting. I turned the ignition. The car's not starting. I shifted gears, park, drive, neutral, everything I could to get it to start. It wasn't starting, and the blood is flying out of my leg at that moment, and the terrorist is still shooting. Well, I quickly tried to start the car again. The car started.
Well, thank
started as if it had never had a problem starting before. I hit the gas as hard as I could. The car zoomed out of there. I drove 170 kilometers an hour. That's about 110 miles an hour to get up the road to the next community, which is called Ofra, where I hoped that I could get an ambulance. And well, the whole time I'm driving, I'm hitting the security radio that we had, trying to get to alert the army of what had happened, and they weren't responding. They didn't seem to hear me, and the whole car was shaking, probably from the speed I was going. My whole body was shaking, probably from loss of blood. But I drove as fast as I could. Nonetheless, I got up to the security gate of Ofra. Now, maybe some of your listeners don't know, but every community in Samaria has a big metal gate in the front, every Jewish community, because that's how we have to protect ourselves from car bombers. And there was a guard at the gate. I started shouting to him, "Get an ambulance, please, get an ambulance." He didn't seem to hear me. There was a young woman on the side of the road. She started jumping up and down, screaming, "Ambulance, ambulance, don't you hear?" At that point, everyone who was within sound's reach came running up to the car. A gas station attendant from the gas station across the street ran to the car. He swung open my car door. He ripped off my shirt. He wrapped up my leg to stop the blood flow. He said, "Don't worry, I'm also a paramedic. I know what I'm doing." and he handed me his cell phone. He said, "Call your wife." Well, I couldn't dial. My hand was shaking too much. He dialed it for me. With one hand, he's holding the tourniquet, to stopping the blood flow, and with the other hand, he dials. I told my wife I've been shot in the leg. Hopefully soon they'll be coming to take me to the hospital in an ambulance, and our son is okay. Well, about a minute and a half later, an ambulance zooms up. Two paramedics jump out of the ambulance. They pull my son out of the car, and they start shouting to the driver of the ambulance, "He's been shot. He's been shot in the head."
Aye.
That a bullet had gone into his head where the skull meets with the neck, we later found out, causing a skull fracture, internal bleeding in the cerebellum. Well, they quickly got to work on him. They put an oxygen mask on his face. They wrapped his head in bandages, and they took both of us on stretchers into the ambulance and to the hospital in Jerusalem. So we were sent to two separate emergency rooms, and they get to work on us. And after about 15, 20 minutes, the head surgeon comes up to me and he says, David, I just want you to know that we're going to have to operate on both of you within the half an hour. It's going to be the first of probably multiple operations. But I just wanted you to know that, and there's someone here who wants to speak to you. There was a man standing next to him who I'd never seen before. He said, "I'm the public relations director for this hospital. I just want you to know that you are the 1,000th victim of terrorism to be hospitalized in this hospital in the past year and a half."
And what year was that?
That was at the very end of 2001. It was the Second Intifada, the so-called Palestinian rebellion. So they're busy rebelling with AK-47 assault rifles, shooting at 3-year-old children. So this is this is what happened, and they did get to work on us. And I tell the story, and I've been telling the story for close to 20 years now. I tell the story not because of our personal trauma, because there are a lot of families, a lot of people who suffered far worse, especially in the biblical heartland of Israel and Judea and Samaria, or known in Hebrew as Yehuda and Shomron. But I tell the story because of miracles, because of the miracles involved. I was shot in my left leg, even though the terrorist was shooting from the right side, which enabled me to drive my automatic car to get to that ambulance. The bullet that went into my son's head and through his neck missed his brainstem by 1 millimeter.
Wow.
Those are miracles you just, that your average atheist might look at and try and rationalize away. But we also know that there are miracles today that happen, that are just revealed miracles. We have two kinds of miracles that we learn about in Judaism. One is the hidden miracle, and the other is the revealed miracle. Well, on my 5th day in the hospital, I'm laying in the hospital bed. I get a call from the car mechanic in Jerusalem, and he says, David, we have the car. We've started ordering parts. There are 49 bullet holes in the car. It's going to be very difficult to fix, but we're going to do our best.
Is that covered by insurance?
Not covered by regular insurance, but
do they have a fund from the government for those victims of terrorism?
Yeah.
Oh, they do. Okay, I figured as much.
Covered for by the national insurance, and yes, so it was fixed at taxpayer expense. As horrible as it is that we taxpayers have to pay for these things, but okay, that's the government's job. It's not my job to stop the terrorism.
49, but how many terrorists were involved? Do you know the exact number?
3. There are 3 terrorists. They're still in jail.
Oh, they were apprehended. Okay.
They were apprehended, after about a year and a half, they were they're in jail. They're still in jail, and their families are getting their salaries from the Palestinian Authority every single month.
Courtesy of the American taxpayer as well.
Courtesy of the American taxpayer and Joe Biden, for that matter, who is busy doing everything he can to undermine Israel today. And even though he knows that the Palestinian Authority is paying all of the terrorists, every terrorist who kills or wounds a Jew.
Now, these terrorists were from the Palestinian Authority. They weren't Hamas, they weren't Hezbollah, they weren't Islamic Jihad. You said they were from the Palestinian Authority.
They were from the Tanzim militia,
which is part of the PIF.
A part of Fatah, and Fatah is the military wing of the Palestinian Authority. So just want to make that clear.
Now you're healed. Tell us about your son.
So okay, look, my son has had a full physical recovery. He's definitely had some emotional challenges over the years. We didn't have the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund at that time, and so that's always been a challenge. Look, trauma from terrorism is real, and we adults, we come to live in Israel, and we move to all kinds of places in order to help rebuild the land of Israel. Which is it's a mitzvah, it's a commandment from the Torah, and if we can do that, so we feel privileged to do that. But the children are just there; they're just children, and trauma hits hard with children. And if they don't deal with the trauma right away, so it's buried inside and it comes out in all the wrong ways. So that's been the challenge, and we saw that challenge with my son. When he came back from the hospital, he was walking screaming every single night. And my wife and I realized there is deep emotional trauma. And the more I explored it, the more I realized that there are thousands of children who suffer from that kind of trauma. And that's when I decided that I was going to start what would eventually become the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund for the purpose of healing the trauma of the terror victim children and restoring some of the lost innocence to their lives.
We're speaking with David Rubin, the mayor of Shiloh, author of Confronting Radicals. He's founder of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, and he himself and his son are victims and were victims of terrorism. So here you are out of a tragedy. You're shot, your son is shot, and you eventually develop the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. Tell us about the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. What are some of the things that it does on a day-to-day basis?
Well, after that attack, I had this vision of somehow blending therapy with education. I just realized we were living in a different time. It's not an era when you can just have kids go to school and just give them their regular education and nothing from the therapeutic side, especially in the heartland of Israel, where we've had such a disproportionate amount of terror attacks. And when there's a terror attack, everyone is affected. We just had an attack like 3 weeks ago, 5 minutes from my home, in a gas station out on the road, and 4 people were murdered. So when that happens, even if you're not from those families of the people who were murdered, and even if you're not from the exact community where each of them lived, you're affected by it. And
you feel it.
Everyone talks about it in their homes. The children hear, the children know what's going on, and it's frightening.
Is there enough security in your communities?
Within the communities, there is good security. Outside
the roads, getting into places?
You go out on the roads, you're taking your life in your hands.
And why isn't the Israeli government providing better security along the roads?
Well, they should be.
Why aren't they?
Look, I vote just like anyone else, but I'm not a part of the government. I'm not even part of the local government anymore. So, we we can insist on it, we can argue about it, and we can debate it, and we can demand it. I agree with you. There should be far better security on the roads. And frankly, look, Zev, you revealed it already that I come from Brooklyn, and
Crown Heights.
I used to play basketball in the schoolyard in East Flatbush, and I have to tell you, the best defense is a good offense, and it doesn't just apply to city basketball. It applies to the battle against terrorism. The Israeli army needs to be in every one of those so-called Palestinian cities and taking the offensive to them. And you know, the little attack that was done on the terrorists in Jenin for a few days, it was very good. It was very effective, but it's not going to stop the terrorism, because they have hornet nests in every Palestinian Authority-run city. That's where the army should be.
I guess you're going to have to do your lobbying for that, but you have your hands full with the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund.
Yeah. So let me just finish answering that question about the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund.
I was getting you back on track. Okay.
Yeah, I do tend to go off on tangents.
No, which is important. These are important issues to talk about.
So we now have a campus with over 2,000 children. There's a boys' school, there's a girls' school, and a therapy center, formal therapy center, informal therapeutic stations, and we've actually just opened up a new campus because there just wasn't enough room, because the demand is so great, and people here have a lot of children. So thank God for that, and we've so we have another campus. The girls moved over to the other campus. The boys remained on the same campus, but we have all kinds of therapeutic programs. We use art and music and horseback riding therapy and small animal therapy and animal-assisted therapy. And we have a multi-sensory safe room and sports therapy. We go on and on. And it's all under one figurative roof. That's all sustained by the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. So I want to encourage people, those who are hearing about what we do and want to partner with us to get on board. They can go right to our website, which is Shiloh, Shiloh. Okay, some Americans might call it Shiloh, but ShilohIsraelChildren.org. ShilohIsraelChildren.org.
And one of the reasons why we have you here is that your Shiloh Israel Children's Program is doing a special event. That's actually the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund is doing a special program entitled "From the Ashes of the Holocaust to the Rebirth of Israel." Tell us about it.
Yes, well, look, I believe in getting out a message, all kinds of important messages. You know, I've written 7 books. My most recent book is called "Confronting Radicals: What America Can Learn from Israel." And so I believe in getting out a message, getting out important messages, and I believe in partnering together with different organizations. And so Rabbi David Abramowitz is a Holocaust expert, and he runs tours to Poland, to the concentration camp, and he's going to be doing a virtual tour, and in partnership with the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. He's going to do a virtual tour of the concentration camps of Auschwitz, and he's going to tell the story of the Holocaust, and then as a result of that, he's going also to talk about, you know, just like the March of Living trips, where they do make the pivot, and they talk about the good things that have happened since the Holocaust, and the rebirth of the state of Israel in our times. And in this case, he is going to talk also about the challenges that Israel has faced the challenge of terrorism, and of course what the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund is doing about that.
So let's tell people how do they participate? How do we get involved in seeing the virtual tour of the concentration camp?
Well, they can just go to my. They could just send me an email, really, and they could just send it to david@shilohisraelchildren.org, and I can send them all the information.
You should have a lot of success with what you're doing. David Rubin is the mayor of Shiloh, author of Confronting Radicals. He and his son were were victims in a terrorist shooting. You heard 49 bullets just shot up at their car. Miraculously, both survived. And that's one of the reasons why he's founded the Shiloh Israel Children's Funds to help children with trauma dealing with that kind of situation. So, David, we look forward to having you back on a future broadcast. And thank you for what you do. It's not easy, but out of adversary, you made a challenge to help other children. How many children have you helped, by the way, over the course of time?
Thousands.
May there be no need for you to do the work that you do, but as long as there's a need, may God give you the strength to do the great job that you're doing. So, and people should get involved with Shiloh, with the Children's Fund. Certainly do amazing work. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Zev.
Thank you for tuning in to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay.